Two teenage girls convicted of plotting to gun down and blow up classmates at school. And if that sounds a hell of a lot like Columbine, you are right. Tonight, we're lucky it didn't happen, because it could have, 10 miles away from Columbine. It got pretty darn close. And we know that because we're learning that the two girls, Sienna Johnson and Brooke Higgins, revered the Columbine murderers. And new evidence just released is giving us some inside look into what those girls were thinking and what those girls were planning. I want you to listen to what Sienna told a detective about how Columbine was her inspiration.
I started watching a lot of documentaries about like Columbine and everything. That really inspired it, to be honest. I personally, like, if I'm going to be honest, I looked at them as like gods. Like, I just found what they did very
ballsy.
Yeah. I think, like, I don't know, I really connected to them, I guess. It sounds really weird, but I did. And
I don't think it sounds weird.
I could really see myself just doing that, like I was capable of doing it.
The girls weren't just talking about it, they were writing detailed descriptions about their plans. Brooke, in fact, wrote in her journal just days before their massacre was initially scheduled to take place. And I'm going to read from December 5th, 2015. Not a day goes by that I don't think about killing myself or everyone around me. I wish I was around for Columbine. I wish I'd done Columbine with Eric and Dylan. They were so incredibly smart. They saw the strings that control the system, and they weren't effing sheep. I wish I could have just even had a conversation with them. Everything in Eric's journal makes effing sense. Like, I have very similar thoughts to his. The new evidence even shows how Sienna and Brooke's plans began to take shape. Their plan for guns, in fact. They mapped out the school, certain areas that would be extra crowded at certain times and where security guards would be stationed. Thankfully, these two girls were caught before they could actually act. Brooke pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit murder and solicitation to commit murder. Sienna pleaded guilty of menacing and conspiracy to commit murder. But these girls looked and seemed like the kids next door. So is there anything that we can learn from their journals, their interviews, their admissions, to help us get in the minds of other kids and maybe prevent the next school shooting or the next awful violence that may be just down the road? I want to bring in George Brockler. He is a district attorney for the 16th Judicial District in Colorado. He joins me from Castle Rock. Sir, thanks so much for being here. How close did these girls actually get to pulling this off?
Well, we think they got pretty close. In fact, after they exchanged some Snapchat and Tumblr information with each other, one of them started researching, Brooke started researching that night. They decided to do Columbine Part 2 online, how to get guns as an underage person. And then the Sienna went actually out and tried to order a BB rifle online from Amazon so she could practice shooting at targets. They'd also reached out to a friend who they believed had access to a handgun and started the process of going to his house and having conversations about whether or not they could access that themselves. But we're never going to know how close we came to this happening, in part because there was a brilliant thing in place down in Douglas County, which is where Castle Rock is, called text-to-tip. And another student who became very disturbed about the things that these girls were talking about and the things that they had shared with her, that she went ahead and anonymously texted law enforcement about this. And that act alone is really what triggered the intervention of law enforcement here to stop it.
So, Mr. Brockler, I want to ask our control room to cue up soundbite number 3, because there are so many clips from the interrogation, and hats off to the investigators out there who were able to just glean so much information and get these girls talking, especially the culling of the interviews as well, or the journals, because there's just remarkable telling information. So in this particular part of the interview with Sienna, this sort of tells us how these two girls' lives collide, because it is remarkable that there are two, like Eric and Dylan, who had the same feelings about what they wanted to do. Typically, it's one that perpetrates crime like this. But this is telling us to how both Sienna and Brooke came together. And this is the interview of Sienna. Let's play it.
There were was a point in time where it was more of a fantasy that I had to get out because I've always been very exaggerated. I exaggerate a lot of things, and it has to be real to me. So for a while it was more of a fantasy, but then when I started really thinking about it and like, I just get like so invested in it.
So,
like, when I met Brooke and everything, it became really real.
she go to school too with you?
Yeah.
So I just want to carry on, if I can, part of that same vein. That was Sienna speaking, but this is Sienna in her journal, her private thoughts. And she said, I have finally met the perfect person, someone who is as angry as me, hates humankind as much as me, and someone who's got what it takes to bring Vista down. We're about to make this school a living effing nightmare. God, Brooke and I will be unstoppable. We will get firearms. I can promise you effers that. I can't wait. Mr. Brockler, was it astounding to you that there were partners in crime? Was it helpful to you because sometimes that opens the info floodgates on the other kid? Or was it more difficult because they often point the finger at the other to escape the blame? Which was it with these two?
No, it was, first off, it was like a gut punch. I mean, and I know you know this, but I prosecuted the guys that sold the Tech DC-9 handgun to Klebold and Harris out of Columbine, which was only about 15 miles to the west of this high school. And Columbine was a neighboring high school to where I grew up. And so that hit home back in '99 when that happened. And this was so eerily similar in the fact that you have these two broken vessels that, but for perhaps fate, would not have found each other and might have gone on to do other less dangerous things. But as you know, with teenagers, more so with boys than girls, there's a synergy there, and teenagers feed off each other. Like, one teenage boy is dumb, two teenage boys are incredibly dumb. Now, in this particular case, we had each girl who was having harmful thoughts about themselves and others, and when they found each other, you can see it sort of accelerated the way in which they approached how they were going to address whatever it was inside, whatever that pain was, that hurt. And they both came from broken homes. They were both smoking marijuana, and one of them was using another harder drug. They took all of that stuff and fed off of each other to create this situation.
You know, since you mentioned that the kinds of trouble they were in, you know, personally, and what was revealed from the journal, I want to read some more, if I can, from Brooke's journal.
Yep.
An entry from December 5th, 2015. I want to do something so exciting and powerful. I want to be the one in charge. I want to be impossible to kill. I want to destroy. And I'm going to carry on another entry from Brooke's journal from the 7th of December that same year. I'm so goddamn tired of effing everything. There's no good in this world, and the only path with hope is a much darker one of evil, chaos, and destruction. And from Sienna's journal, I want to beat the living shit out of someone with a heavy metal baseball bat. I want to crush every limb and snap their effing necks. Ha, 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 ha. So cruel. I'm so cruel. I have destructive and violent feelings. Dave Cullen knows a lot about this. He's the author. He literally wrote the book. He's the author of Columbine. Two young women, journals with this kind of information. They revered Eric and Harris. Were they similar, or are they vastly different?
You know, my early read, I've just been going through this all today, is they both remind me of Eric Harris, which is astonishing because among school shooters and spectacle murders, Eric is an outlier. He's fairly rare, a really sadistic, psychopathic kid.
Angry.
Yeah, so angry and contemptuous in particular. You know, now I'm not a psychologist and I'm not deep into this case yet, but I was shocked because it's almost always immediately apparent. You've got the alpha, you got the follower, and they jump right out at you. This might be a double alpha case, which I've never seen before.
It's bizarre.
It really is, and both so vindictive. And so when I listened to Sienna's tape, the interview with the detective, it was great. We were discussing, he's really great at just sort of like just drawing her out. And
yes.
The amount of time he spends just sort of winning her over is fantastic, but she is so blasé about it. It's not even a lack of remorse. It's a lack of even
understanding.
Yes, recognition or
of the world of hell is about to rain down on her. She has no clue.
Right now she doesn't.
You know, I say these things like, look.
And it's like ordering, you know, I'm getting a fried chicken tonight or Taco Bell. It's just like.
If you can see, I've only got 30 seconds, but this is an entry in one of the journals and the pictures. And parents, if you're out there, look, I get privacy, but if you suspect there's anything, any depression, any sadness, and you have an opportunity to look into the minds of your children and you see anything like this, intervention, because God forbid that we didn't find these two and something else happened like what, you know, Columbine that you know so well. Dave, thank you. And George Brockler, thank you as well. We're back right after this.